All right, guys, we got another album early to drop on the day of a release. CANTERVICE have sent us their new debut album, 0 Hour. How we feeling about it?
It feels like for so long, this band has been dropping single after single after single, and every single time it was, cowards announce the damn album.
we were pitching a fight against them for like most of it.
And now that it's here, we see the full picture. This is a fantastic debut album, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, this is wild.
It had the Dark Horse top 10 potential, and I still think it does. But given how stacked November 2024 is turning out to be, I don't know if it will be able to hold on.
Yeah. I know I've talked about each single pretty much like individually a lot, because we've included almost all of the songs in our recaps. The only ones we didn't, I believe, were Point of No Return, because that dropped the same month. Artificial Minds was the only single that dropped as part of the album. 0 Hour was
0 Hour is the opener.
That as well. I think everything else we talked about. So I'd kind of like to leave the floor open to everyone else who's like kind of got a fresh mind on most of this stuff, because otherwise I have like several hundred listens on CANTERVICE alone.
Yeah,
I'm a bit biased.
Yeah. For me, CANTERVICE have always, as I said, like we've been waiting for this album for a while for them to even just announce the damn thing. And that's because all of the singles, or most of the singles anyway, were just so consistently delivering like a high level of quality. Like the floor on this album is really high. I think where Justin, you and I are going to disagree is that I don't know how high the ceiling is. I feel like it's a high ceiling. I feel like it's a high ceiling, but I don't feel like it peaks as high as many of my other favorite albums that I've heard this year that I was hoping the album might. When we were when I was saying Cowards announced the album back when they were releasing just a couple singles into the album cycle, it was like there's still potential for some absolute banger of a song that I have on repeat over and over and over again, like you have. The closest that I got with that were Enemy at the Gates and Where Do We Stand being my two favorites. And the other more generic post-hardcore, hard rock sort of songs like a Doomsday, Blackout, Into the Dark, those ones, none of those like blew me away. Everything here is great, don't get me wrong. But I wasn't blown away. That's kind of what it comes down to. And I was hoping that, given how high the floor is with these singles, that like really they weren't doing anything wrong. It was just waiting for them to do something amazing that I don't feel like they hit it on this album, but the potential is absolutely there. Yeah,
no, I agree. Well, I understand your point where you're coming from. I kind of went into this album with the knowledge that this album was recorded back in 2021, 2022. So most of these tracks, they've been kind of sitting on for a while and have kind of marinated for a while. When I was messaging the vocalist Rob some of my points on Point of No Return, because he actually sent me that early. And they had mentioned that a lot of stuff was recorded early. While this is a good jumping off point, the next pieces of work that they've got going on, I think, are going to like really set in stone what this band is going to do. I think all of this, looking at it all as a complete package, really shows their quality and the just immediate talent each of the guys have. Rob has been doing cover vocals on YouTube for X amount of years. So like he's already like a well-trained vocalist and whatnot. And you can definitely show his talent in a lot of different songs, being able to play that kind of high energy style in songs like
The
Blackout,
Masquerade.
Masquerade, and then playing like kind of slower, somber stuff like Where Do We Stand and Into the Dark. All of that kind of like plays really well into I wouldn't say versatility, but I'd say like expertise in a lot of this kind of general style. And I think the next projects that are going to come from this is going to be a really good jumping off point. My favorites from the album, kind of looking at it now, are Blackout, Chasing the Sky, and the new song that dropped with this album, Artificial Minds. That one I've had on repeat since we got the album early. It's I love the chorus. It's so fast and kind of energetic.
It's one of
and
the
then
more unique songs on the album for sure.
And then the breakdown as well. It's just it all works so well together. It's been one of my most like repeatable songs within the last like week or so, and it's been really good. One of the gripes that I have with this, with not the album, but kind of just the way the scene kind of acts, you have to. We mentioned this quite a bit, where a lot of nowadays the algorithm favors more playlists than full albums, so it really benefits bands to start kind of dropping more and more singles as it goes on. Which is fine. I get that. Sometimes you have to compile it some way in an album. But in this album, where you get a prelude before a single that's already dropped, the prelude is a little bit hard to kind of get invested in and kind of like really grab myself into this kind of album where I know what I'm expecting in the next couple songs that come into it. And it's not just in CANTERVICE's sake. A lot of bands have done this where they'll do like an interlude into a song. To Better Days by Rain City Drive.
What It Cost to Be Like a Villain as well.
Yeah, like it's a clear example of like setting a really good picture for someone that's listening to the album for the first time. But for fans of the bands where it's something that they've heard before, it's kind of hard to kind of keep invested in and not just give them incentive to skip to what they don't know. And
that's
again,
one of the points that I was going to make, is that I feel like if you have never heard of CANTERVICE before, your first listen of this album, I think, is going to be incredible. I definitely think that like the way that they've managed to create this sort of like cyber futuristic soundscape across the entire album, and the way that 0 Hour as an opening prelude sets the atmosphere for that, I really think new listeners are going to be invested. If you can get through the minute that is 0 Hour and then you get into Doomsday and you're like, okay, I like this, I think you're in for a treat for the remainder of the album. I mean,
for an interlude, 0 Hour was good. I liked it setting the scene and everything. Mm-hmm. It's just in the state that the scene is right now, interludes kind of play against.
Yeah,
they kind of play against those that kind of keep up with the album release cycles and everything, and kind of incentivize more kind of waiting for the album and everything. But all that to say, again, like every single song here is, from top to bottom really good. I am a bit biased in that, sad that The Machine didn't make it on the album, but that's fine.
Your favorite song of theirs?
I think it is. Kind of looking over everything, I think Blackout's making a beeline for it, but when in the conversation of just CANTERVICE alone, I think it kind of is still at least top 3, maybe top 2. But I can understand why they didn't include Out in the Void, but the songs they didn't include are great. Like we talked about a lot of them kind of individually, so I won't press too much into them. But the Masquerade into the Blackout, Blackout into the Masquerade into the Dark is just
that's
like
a really good
stretch. And then we mentioned this prior when Enemy at the Gates dropped, but Artificial Minds into Enemy at the Gates into Chasing the Sky is also just a really good stretch.
Where Do We
And then
Stand
Where
is
Do
a
We
fantastic closer. Like, as I said
Yeah.
earlier,
You
probably my
that's
favorite song on the album. Like it really sells the, I don't know, the chorus of that song, the "Where do we stand here in a world that is dark and gray, filled with voices of pain we turned away? Why aren't we fighting for better days?" In this, like, as I said, this like cyber futuristic soundscape that they're creating, where they're talking about like the future of technology and like, I don't know, just it sounds very futuristic in a lot of the lyricism. The idea of like fighting for better days and uprising, I feel like, is really well sold throughout the album. And then questioning the future in Where Do We Stand. I don't know. I really appreciated how that tied together a lot, like thematically, a lot of the lyrics from the rest of the album.
Yeah, and I like looking at the album, like the tracks. You probably can piece together some sort of story about how this is going on. And they also said this is definitely like a concept band, so I'm curious to see where this is gonna go, like story and like idealization wise. Because if you look at bands like Starset, that kind of like have an idea of like their lore and everything like that. You can like definitely see the growth in those types of concepts. So I'm really curious to see like what the next chapter is lore wise and how that's going to play into each of the songs. Like, is it going to be like in a more positive light, or is it going to be like a fallout of sort? And it's going to be super interesting.
The thing I found interesting about what you said, Justin, is you said these guys recorded this in like 2021.
Yeah.
I think this album, to me, it sounds very heavily influenced by Scoring the End of the World by Motionless in White, which came out in 2023. So, in my mind, I kind of wish, after hearing that, I kind of wish they released it sooner, because that album did great for Motionless in White. I think like that this style of like heavy electronics and post-apocalyptic what do you call it, lyricism and I'm gonna say imagery, but it's not imagery, atmosphere. I think they would have more numbers, honestly, on streams.
Yeah, I can kind of see that, but like, there's also the perspective of releasing so close to when that album dropped that.
Well, I think they could have released it before.
I mean, yeah, they probably could have. It's a timing thing. I think the idea to like kind of let the music simmer and kind of wait for that to settle down, I think was good. I don't think this would have been ready for that time, because I don't know what songs were exactly ready before then. Plus, I think some like, because the band got signed to Fixed like about a year or so ago, so I think that stuff was transitioning. I don't think it was like in the cards to quite release it, but I do get where you're saying. Like, I think this kind of style, kind of creating a story and whatnot, I think was in its heyday, like toward the end of that period, especially with like the pandemic and whatnot. It's like people were definitely looking for some sort of outlet for that kind of stuff. So I think this probably would have fit very well coming in around that time, but it just wasn't in the cards. And I think all in all, I kind of looking just as the album as a whole, I think they did a really good job top to bottom. We didn't really talk about Point of No Return, which is the other single that dropped earlier this month. I think that's another like really good kind of slow, somber style song that just like really plays well as a good transition point.
I don't know if I would call it a summer song. But
somber,
this album has
not summer.
Okay, I misheard. My bad.
Yeah.
My bad.
Summer, you
summer,
think
not somber.
The home team, not CANTERVICE.
Yeah, I was gonna question the whole like, yeah, we're talking like futuristic, post-apocalyptic, and you're mentioning summer now, are you? Okay.
No,
my
like
bad.
A kind of somber ballad.
Yeah,
I really hear the Starset influence on that song. Like even the name is the name of another Starset song.
Oh, it is. That is right. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear a lot of like I said, like influence of like Starset, Bad Omens,
Bring Me.
yeah, Bring Me. My other one I already said it is Motionless in White. But apparently they weren't influenced by it because they wrote these songs before that album came out.
It is what it is. Yeah, I don't have too much more else to say about this album.
Derek, you've been quiet. Do you have any quick thoughts you want to share?
I want them to lean more into the synths that kind of weaved in and out of this, because I think that there were a lot of moments where I feel like if the synths had gone bigger, it would have drove home a lot of the like kind of epic post-apocalyptic messaging that they were going for. If possible, that would be something that I would like to see on the next project, whether it be an EP or album or singles or whatever it is. But I will say that I think that this is really well produced and a very strong first showing from CANTERVICE.
This is Cameron Mazel mastered, so big shoes.
What I'd love to hear from them is more I guess something new. Like we talked about influences in this. I'd love to see them push their creativity, and like it's okay to use influences from other artists.
Right.
I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'd love to see them push beyond that, and yeah, I'd like to see that in their next album or next project.
Yeah, especially with a band that's just coming out. I think like the influence is going to help them kind of push numbers and whatnot. But yeah, I definitely agree. I want to see some experimentation kind of blend into this kind of style, because I really think with this kind of creativity, I think they could go far with different styles. But I'm curious to see like where it goes from here. It's they're doing really well. They're at 60,000 monthly listeners, which is wild. I don't remember the last time we checked. I want to say like they were around like 10,000 or so when they were signed to Fix. I want to say like their numbers just continue to grow, and I'm glad to see that they are doing as well as they are.
Yeah, definitely go. If you like all this sort of post-apocalyptic, futuristic, post-hardcore, Starset, Motionless in White, you like any of that sort of stuff, give CANTERVICE a listen, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. There's a lot to like here.